Hi, my name is Jeanne Norris and I work at the Institute for School Partnership at Washington University here in St. Louis. Today I'll be teaching science for 3rd grade, but learners of all ages are welcome to join me. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Where am I, you might be wondering? Well, I am on a nature trail. As you can see, there are some really pretty fall leaves behind me. And if you listen really carefully, you can hear leaves falling, and you can hear bugs, and you can hear birds. I thought that today it would be really fun for us to go on a notice and wonder walk together. When I go on a notice and wonder walk, I like to take my science notebook with me. And so we can draw what we notice and write what we notice and wonder on our science notebook. Do you like to go on walks with your family? Where do you go? Well, we like to go to the woods, and so that's where we are today. We are also in a special place called a glade. So we're going to learn about those two different types of ecosystems and the awesome creatures that live in there. And we are going to think about the traits that they have and how those traits might be good for them in terms of survival. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, I brought my science notebook on this walk, and we're going to be making notes about what we notice and wonder. So here's an easy way you can do that. You just write notice on one side and wonder on the other side. Remember, what you notice are things that you observe with your senses, and what you wonder is what you have questions about what you noticed. So we can just make an easy 2-column chart and keep track of what we notice and wonder on our nature walk. When you go on a notice and wonder walk, you might not go as fast as you'd typically go on a regular walk. You want to slow down and look at every little thing that you can observe. If you don't, you might miss some really cool stuff. For example, when we were walking around, we noticed a ton of different spider webs that were on trees, flowers, and grasses. We noticed that it was a very foggy morning and that the leaves are just starting to change for fall. We even saw a red-tailed hawk flying overhead. You have to be looking up, down, and all around when you go on a notice and wonder walk. All right, Silas, what do you notice about our walk so far?
Well, I noticed that there are a ton of different types of leaves.
There are many different kinds of leaves. That's right. Lots of different types of trees. We've seen some cedar trees and some sassafras trees, some maple trees. Oh my gosh, what did you find?
That
Uh-oh, what is that?
looks like a puffball. Doesn't look like a caterpillar. Definitely does not look like a caterpillar.
Are we sure? I don't know. Oh my gosh, this is weird. Hey, don't touch it though, because sometimes these caterpillars, if it is a caterpillar, these spiky things are actually really painful. Okay, so we'll record that you noticed a fuzzy thing on a leaf. So what did you notice?
I noticed some lichens here, but now I also noticed some moss over here.
Moss and lichens growing on, I think this is a
Pine tree?
the cedar tree.
Yeah, I think we have one of these in our yard. I tell these from other trees because of their loose bark.
So we're going to take a second to just notice this environment and what this environment is like, because if you want to understand why different plants and animals have what traits they have, remember, traits are what a living thing looks like or behaves like. If you want to understand that, you have to understand the environment that they are in. So if you look around, if you look this way, this is going into a forested area, and it is very shady and cool. And if you look over in this direction behind us, it is, what do you notice about it? What do you see? What do you notice about it, Silas?
Well, I noticed that it's very sunny and there's also a ton of rocks, but once you get really up there, there's not as much roots as down here.
Yeah.
Because most of the trees grow in this wooded area, so it would make sense for all the roots to just be here.
That does make sense. And you're right, this area up ahead is really sunny and very rocky. And there are less trees, and that's why it's more sunny, right? So this area that we are about to enter is called a glade. And a glade is a really important ecosystem. It is a rocky, hot, dry ecosystem where only particular plants and animals can grow. So let's go ahead and keep looking and see what kinds of organisms we can find in this glade ecosystem. So this is a much better view of the glade ecosystem. You can see behind me, it's a very open area. There are trees in the back, and that's where the forest ecosystem starts. But this open, grassy, rocky area behind me is the glade. And as soon as you go into the glade, you notice that the plants and animals there are very different than the ones that are in the forest. In the forest, you see lots of trees and maybe not as much flowers. Here you can see lots of different kinds of flowers growing. You can see grasses growing and maybe some short trees here or there. They're very young trees, but definitely not as much as the forest. So we are going to look really closely at some of the plants that live in this glade ecosystem and think about how they are similar or different from each other. You might remember the word traits. Traits are what a living thing looks like or how they behave. And so we're going to look today in our lesson at traits and what those things might mean for the living thing. So let's take these asters, for example. An aster is like a daisy flower. And I think that these are called calico asters. You might notice some, well, I'll ask you first, what do you notice about these flowers? You might notice that some of them have yellow in the middle and some of them have purple in the middle. Well, this is one aster plant that we see here. And if you are a scientist, you have to look really, really closely. You might look at each of these aster plants. Look at them. There's a bunch of them in this particular part of the glade. You might look at each of these plants and think, well, they just all look the same. But you've got to put on your scientist eyes in order to see the differences. So you might notice that some of the plants are maybe taller than the others. You might notice that some of the plants have more flowers than others. What are some other trait differences that you might notice? Maybe you might be thinking about the number of leaves that each plant has. Maybe some of these aster plants have more leaves than the others. What do you wonder about the differences that you might see in a group of organisms that are living in the same area? What do you wonder? You might wonder, do these differences matter? Does it matter that some asters are taller than others? Does it matter if they have more leaves or more flowers? And those are the kinds of questions that scientists research. They might research an organism's traits and how those traits might affect the organism's ability to survive. How do you think you might measure that? How would you figure that out? Well, we might be able to do an investigation to sort of model how scientists might count or measure how an organism's traits impact its survival or affect its survival. While we were on the trail, I noticed something that I was really hoping to see. An organism that is really special to a glade environment. Can you see it? You might have to look really closely. Did you find it? Here, we'll zoom a little bit closer. It's a grasshopper. Grasshoppers are a common species found in a glade area. What do you notice or wonder about this grasshopper? Here's another grasshopper that we found on the trail. What do you notice or wonder about it? Okay, so like I said, we are going to get a chance to model how an organism's traits might affect its ability to survive. So those grasshoppers really got us thinking about coloration. And so we thought that it would be good to model how an insect will be affected by its environment and by the color that it is. So those grasshoppers that we saw, for example, they were dark brown. And if you looked around in that glade, you would have seen that a lot of the rocks in that glade were dark brown as well. But where we took the picture of the grasshoppers, was it dark brown? No, it was a light tan color. So that really got us thinking about how that grasshopper's colors affected its ability to survive in its environment. What do you think? How would different colors affect an animal's ability to survive? Can you think of any examples of that? There's a special word that we use for it. Do you know the word for an animal that is hiding itself? It's called camouflage, right? So we are going to model camouflage and how different colors might affect an organism's ability to survive. So here we have a population of grasshoppers. Okay, they're not really grasshoppers, right? They are toothpicks of different colors, but they're going to simulate variation in a population. Remember, variation means differences. So we are going to show what would happen if we have 5 different colors of grasshoppers in a group of grasshoppers and how their traits of color would affect their survival. So Silas, can you go ahead and count out? We want to start with the same color of each type of grasshopper at first. So can you count out 5 of each?
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. Okay, here are 5.
Some extras.
These are the leftover ones.
Okay, and so we're going to record that in our data table. See, I made a data table here. Grasshopper color is the category, so we have pink, red, green, white, and yellow. And we have the number before hunting. So what number should go there for the number before hunting? Yeah, we counted out 5 for each of them. So we're going to put a 5 under each category. Okay? And then afterwards we're going to count how many are left. All right, so we're going to get ready to do our grasshopper hunt. All right, so I hid grasshoppers on our living room rug, and I'm challenging Silas to find as many grasshoppers as he can in only 10 seconds. All right, Silas, ready, go. All right, so here are all of the grasshoppers that you were able to eat.
Yep, and I have 3 white ones that I couldn't find, 1 pink one I couldn't find, and 1 red one.
Okay, so let's go ahead and record those numbers.
Pink, 1, red, 1, green, 0, white, 3, yellow, 0.
All right. So what do you think our data is telling us so far?
That when your thing can blend into like the white, I would think that the white ones would actually have the great advantage because like they would be able to blend in.
Yeah, we can kind of see that here on the carpet, can't we? So Silas has been working really hard in math to make graphs of data. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for him to show you how he would take a data table like this and turn it into a graph to show people what he found in his model. All right, you ready to go?
Yep.
So what did you decide to count by?
I decided to count by 1 since the highest number out of this is 5, so...
That's a good choice. And you chose to make 2 graphs, one before graph and one after graph.
Maybe I should label here. Actually, no. Okay. P for pink. And R for red. And then comes a G for green. Then W. Then a Y.
So you chose to represent the colors by their first letter, P, R, G, W, Y, to save you some space on your graph.
Should probably do that. And here is the P and the R and the G then the W then the Y.
Okay.
Okay.
And so what should all good graphs have on them? There are 3 things that we need to add.
We need a title, so we should say grasshopper, maybe grasshopper data.
Okay, grasshopper data. And you're making 2 graphs, so you could, and which graph is this one that you just
This
made?
is the before one.
Yeah, so maybe you could include that in your title. So are you going to call it grasshopper data before?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
How do you spell data?
D-A-T-A. Data.
D-A-T-A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. And then there are 2 other things that a graph needs. What do you think?
Doesn't it need like centimeters or feet here?
Yeah, it needs axis labels. And so what is this number representing?
Isn't it representing how much of each one?
Yeah, so you can just say number.
Okay.
Number. And what is this part representing?
This part is representing the colors.
Yeah. cool. So then we have one more graph to make.
Yep, the after one.
I noticed that you're putting your title first this time. That's great.
Yep. Maybe I should underline these.
Oh, good idea.
Okay. I should probably write number here.
That's awesome that you're remembering your title and axis labels first this time.
And let's see. Okay, the highest number in this one is 3.
So we're still going to go by ones. And you might still put your graph up to 5, so that way it'll make it easier to compare these two graphs.
I only have enough space to 4.
Oh, okay. That works too.
Okay.
And we're doing the same categories in the same order for the second graph.
Yep. Okay. The highest one, which is white, is 3. So here. Green 0. So I should probably leave it blank. And 0 for yellow also. Red 1. Pink 1.
Wow.
Okay. So this is basically telling me that, well, there used to be a lot more different colors. But then, once a predator was like, oh, I think there's grasshoppers here, he kind of went in and gobbled up all the grasshoppers.
Yeah, until which ones were left? Which ones survived the best?
Only the pink, red, and white. The white ones, it blended in with their surroundings, so it makes sense for them to have the most.
Yeah.
And pink, well, doesn't really blend in, neither does red, but the predator was probably looking so fast that he didn't really see it.
Yeah, I didn't have time. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Silas. Thank you for helping us analyze this data. Here's his final graph. He colored it in so that the data is even easier to analyze. Does it make sense to you? What do you think would happen if the grasshopper's environment was a red rug instead, or a green rug, or a yellow rug, or a pink rug? You might start to notice that it's not that the white was necessarily the best, it's that the white blended in best with its environment. You might notice that some of the white grasshoppers did get eaten. Being white isn't a guarantee that you will survive on a white rug. It just means that you're more likely to. Similarly, a pink one and a red one did survive even though they didn't blend in very well on the rug. That's because the predator just wasn't able to find that particular pink or red one. That happens in nature too. And that's why you see variation that keeps on happening in a group of organisms. Many of the organisms that we observed on the glade, and even those we didn't, are all subject to this same thing. Whatever your environment is, you have to have the traits that are well adapted to that environment in order to survive. Glades are really hot and dry, so some of the organisms here are unlike anything else you'll see in Missouri. For example, you'll find roadrunners, collared lizards, and prickly pear cactus. Over lots of time, these species have developed the characteristics or adaptations that allow them to survive in a hot, dry environment. Having these helpful traits usually allows an organism to survive, reproduce, and then pass on these traits to their offspring. Well, we had a lot of fun going on a notice and wonder walk and playing the camouflage game. You could do these things around your home too, very easily. So a notice and wonder walk doesn't have to happen in the woods. It can happen anywhere you can go where you can just walk around and look very, very carefully and ask questions. And remember, if you want to see that variation of traits in living things, you've got to go slow and you've got to look extra, extra closely because some variation is very, very tiny, very hard to observe. But if you look close enough, you can see it. So you go on a notice and wonder walk with your family. You can also play the camouflage game. You don't have to have colored toothpicks. It could be buttons or really any little toys that you can find around the house or M&Ms, something like that. As long as you have a background that you can hide them in where some of them will blend in and some of them won't, and then you can challenge a family member to find them. All right, well, I hope that you had fun today, and remember all week long to keep on noticing and wondering because that is the most important thing that you can do in this world. All right, see you later.
Teaching in Room 9 is made possible with support of Bank of America, Dana Brown Charitable Trust, Emerson, and viewers like you.